done it and still like 5 years on it. Now I can't remember what it was. And then every now and then you'll get something like that shouldn't be good forever. What do you mean pickles expire? Pickles should be good forever, right? The whole purpose of food.
You know what we did find too, though? You know, the stuff canned with the linen can, it actually does not have last 30 years. I would say that's more concerning than the other stuff, because we opened some cans up literally that were 25 years. And they go,
Got some 30
they're
years.
probably still usable, but you don't want to use it.
No, you wouldn't want to.
Yeah.
No, you wouldn't want to.
So is this second hour going to be, they indicated it was like a more deep dive?
It's gonna be, yeah, it's gonna be a little bit more of a deep dive into that. Some of it will be repeat stuff. And I can share all, it's mostly going to be you guys led. So that we can meet your needs wherever they are.
Well, you indicated that, sorry, when we were here, they were saying that the second hour was like the plan of part, you indicated that's the hardest part, most anxiety.
Yeah, it's the most anxiety.
That's why we went to the anxiety class.
Yeah, maybe we should have. Maybe we should.
We are
have done
set.
in order.
We'll help you guys through that.
You're so. Oh, you're fine. Go ahead.
It's okay. We sit next to each other always. So, as far as your water storage before we start.
Yeah.
So what were your key things there on the storage?
The key things about water storage.
Was it just like
I'll show you this
the
one.
normal state, recommendations, or are you talking about?
Mostly, yes, but there'll be some things that we'll add to it when we talk about the family plan.
Okay.
So, yeah, this part is a little more free spirited. It's more about finding out what you guys need to know. And then helping you with those things, but we'll also kind of flash through some of the slides that we did in the last one to get us to that point. So do you think we're okay to start? We're good, okay. So I was letting them know in the last group, and half of you were in that group, so I won't repeat all of it, but I just grew up with one disaster after another, from gigantic earthquakes to volcanoes and dam breaks and tornadoes, and all of this. And when I was newly married and living in Utah, Hurricane Katrina happened. This is just aging myself a little bit, but Hurricane Katrina happened, and there was a need for volunteers out at Camp Williams because we had a lot of children sent to Utah that showed up here with no parents. And so it was the process of trying to communicate and find the right parents and real concern about trafficking issues and things like this, because parents were literally handing their kids to people on planes and sending them anywhere. And often they would not tell people on the planes where the plane was going, because when people heard they were going to Utah, they'd get off the plane. They would rather have stayed in New Orleans than go to Utah. I think there's several reasons. I'm going to go with weather. I don't think it was weather, but maybe weather. So some of that was going on, and we did end up with some children at Camp Williams and so with my background in children's well-being, it seemed to fit. And I was already working as a earthquake specialist for Red Cross, and I would go out and teach earthquake courses for Red Cross at the time. And so it was a nice transition. I thought, well, I'll never probably be in a hurricane. I don't picture myself living at the beach anytime soon. So this will be my hurricane experience. And so I went out and got to volunteer and spend some time at Camp Williams. And that was super eye-opening just to see how the whole process of setting up shelters work. And so now I go through my area in South Jordan and help people who have my calling understand how to use their building as a shelter should that arise as a need as well. So just a little background on me. I am from Idaho, grew up on a potato farm. My high school mascot was a potato.
So
All you need to Shelly. Shelly, which is weird because there's like 300 of us and yet everybody knows someone from Shelly. So yeah, from Shelly. Mom didn't want us going to school there, not because of the mascot, but because her first grade teacher was still teaching first grade. Long span of time. So we went to Boise for school. So we crossed the state and went back and forth, but had lots of interesting disaster experiences in our life. And one of those disaster experiences that we had in our life was that my father was terminally ill my whole life. growing up. And he passed away when I was a young teenager, and we lost our main source of income. And there's just the natural anxiety and stress that comes through that process. And I know it put in my heart a need to help people understand the need to have a plan and have your family on board, as well as being prepared for things that could come, because job loss.
That's when my family used food storage, like around years of time when I was at work, and that's when food storage really came up.
It really came in handy for a job loss. And I don't think we're heading in a direction where we're gonna have less job loss. I just don't feel like that's the direction the world is going right now. And so being prepared for those little things, it's not all about the earthquake. Because a lot of things that come up in your life can shake your world, right? And so having the skills that you just learned in the anxiety class, that's a part of the family emergency plan. What do you plan to do with your kiddos when they are anxious and stressed out and out of their homes? Okay, so these are all some of the things that we want to talk about. This little pamphlet, I told them I tried to order them for you, but they're back ordered. And it's from Salt Lake County Health Department. Utah County Health Department may have the same exact booklet with their name on the back. But there's nothing in here specific to Salt Lake that you could use as well. So you could order them from Salt Lake County. But it's a little Your Family Disaster Guide. This page here, the Area Temporal Preparedness Guide for Utah, is found online. You can Google search it. It's by the church. It also has how to make a family plan. One of the number one things you want to do when you sit down to figure out a family plan is figure out what disasters and what situations you're planning for. So this one's not done. This was just me throwing some things up to give you a sample, but job loss, death of a family member, there's a lot of other things that can go on here. And then going through and saying, how will it be a disruption to my family? So putting a check mark and saying, gosh, that hazmat situation's I'm gonna have to leave my home. We'll need to make sure we have some portable food. Will we be able to communicate with our kids and let them know? It's almost all going to affect your emotional and spiritual well-being, right? It's going to be something that tries your faith, and in many ways to have any of these things happen. So starting out, first of all, by figuring out what it is exactly you're preparing for. And then communication is the next portion that I want to go over in your family plan. Writing the plan down is important. It's the process of writing it down that lets you know it. I have all my wards turn in a ward emergency plan to me every 2 years. And when they hand me a full binder, I know we're in trouble. If they hand me 4 pieces of paper and say, here's our plan, you're thinking, well, that's not much of a plan. That's the plan I want, because it means that we have it down and we know what's going on. It's not like, if Sarah doesn't show up, that's page 284 of my plan. Where do we find Sarah, right? It doesn't need, if it's that big of a plan and you haven't taken the time to sit down, talk through it with the kids, talk through it with siblings or whoever you're doing this planning with, then it's where it's all going to fall apart. If anyone here is single and doing this on their own, it's good to find a partner to do this with, someone you know is going to check in on you. It's great to have it be someone in the ward, or the community, the neighborhood, but it doesn't have to be. It can be someone from outside as well. But this is a process that you really should have someone else there helping come up with ideas. So the disaster plan, when we talk communications, I just want to show you real quick. We hear about disasters where cell phones don't work. There's a couple of issues with that. Often if a cell phone won't work, texting still will work. But if it's a huge disaster like the California fires, even texting wasn't really working because the system was so overwhelmed. Years ago, does anyone remember? You're not in the same county, so I don't know if you really remember, but Harriman basically caught fire. It was coming up over the mountain. Camp Williams had been doing some test range stuff. They caught the mountain on fire, burned up and over the hill and took out some homes in Harriman. But you could just watch this fire burning down the mountain. The communities were evacuated very quickly. It happened very fast, and communications went down. My husband and I are ham radio operators in South Jordan City. Said, come sit in the basement with us and help us get firemen in place where they need to be using the ham radios. And so that's something that we both do. One of our children is ham radio certified. I've got 2 moving to the East Coast for grad school. We're going to make them do it before they go. My husband's been a scoutmaster for, I don't know, a million years. He would go up to Camp Steiner, and anyone been to Camp Steiner? It is so far up there, there is no way you're getting cell service. And he would run an antenna up a tree and radio me and be like, we're out of ice cream, next dad coming up needs to bring 5 grams, right? Or David's thrown up on everything he owns, please send new clothes. And so I could reach out to the parents back at home, and I could reach in by ham radio. One time he even took his radio with him on a business trip to Hawaii, and I was able to get him. So it took a little work, but we figured it out. Ham radios are awesome for communication. Your little kids aren't going to be able to use them. And it does studying, and you have to be licensed to use a ham radio. This is my ham radio. It's tiny, I can take it anywhere with me. It also has GPS. So if I'm out in the woods and I get lost, I can use it, and it will actually be like beep, 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 and lead me to my husband's radio.
Oh, it's beautiful.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
These are great little things. So I can use it as a ham radio. I can also use it as something called a GMRS, which is just like ham. Do you know this? I feel like
I'm laughing at him because we were certified because it was his idea and we try to be prepared.
Super.
And then recently the GMRS came up too, so that's why I'm laughing.
super dumbed down version. Okay, this is super, super dumbed down
I'll
version.
ask you some questions.
Oh, I won't know the answer, but I'll give you my husband's.
Oh, no.
And you can call him. But this one will do GMRS, which you don't need you do need a license for, but it's like a $15 license. It covers your whole family. Okay, so we found a discount on it.
Is there?
And so it was 15 for 2 years. Is what we found.
Okay, but 35 for 10, so just do.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's just kind of
For your
different.
whole
We started low, it goes for the whole family. And so our kids all got, well, they didn't get this one because this one is a ham radio, but it also will do the GMRS. This one is a GMRS radio. This is what we gave all of our kids for Christmas. My husband spent $40 for 2 packs, but they're actually very high quality.
They're so cheap now.
They were so cheap.
Chinese.
Yeah, Chinese
Okay.
products. What can you
They're
say?
amazing, and they're actually kind of illegal. They go to 8 watts, which is beyond FCC, but
So there's 2, this one has 2 different settings. This
I think
has
the illegal ones, just,
this has a ham setting where you can listen to ham radio, but you cannot broadcast.
right,
Then it does work as a GMRS. It also has the weather radio, so I can tune in and get the weather anywhere we're going. It also has the GPS, so my kids down at college, we can find them. You could actually,
Yeah, that's,
Do you
that's,
find
you
this-
said, I was like, oh.
yeah, these do too, and they don't need to take a test to be licensed. You just need to buy a family license.
do you find that works?
Yes, so that was gonna be my next thing. So we live in South Jordan, between the 2 temples, closer to Oker Mountain Temple, if that gives you any idea. And my husband was able to reach his father at Promontory Point. Yeah, it's line of sight, but you can
Yes,
bounce.
it's line of sight,
Yeah,
yeah,
so it's, if you can get up high enough.
If you could do the ham radio,
about it.
oh, that.
Yes, if you can do the ham radio, go that route. If your kids are a little young to maybe be trying to take the test to get it for themselves, but you still want to communicate with them, this works great too. This is what we have in all of our wards to communicate with me in an emergency, but our ward kind of does this. And so there's places they have to go to be heard because there are a few really little spots. Yeah, so if we got the antennas and stuff, but I'm not going down that route with them. My ward is literally a quarter mile. No, my state, not my ward. My whole state is a quarter mile by 1 mile. So my mom lives across the street, one direction, different state. My brother across the street, the other direction, different state. 2 different temples, everything. I mean, it's a very dense population. But these work great for that kind of thing and also for kids. So we also tried to come south. We got as far south as my brother-in-law in South Lehigh. And then he was able to reach our children in Provo.
Yeah.
So kind of piggyback. Now with the ham radio, we could have got them in Hawaii, right? But with the GMRS, that's where they're at with their time and resources. That's what we did for them. And we love the being able to find them. We even over Christmas break, my kids are all in their 20s and we had them hide all over the place with their radios. We practiced contacting them so they knew how to get us. And then we practiced saying, hey, you have to stay there. We're going to come find you. And we used it. You could just walk around and it like leads you in that direction. There's a quick reference guide here. This is what we gave all of our children to help them understand how to use it. And then it actually has our kids' names and their radio numbers on it, so we know what we're trying. And then we have backup numbers for them as well. So if anyone at some point wants to see that. But there's more to communication than this long distance super emergency thing. It's your kids knowing where to find you after school if there has been an emergency. It's you knowing as a parent, how do I get my kid out of school? How do I check my kid out? So I will tell you that school districts will not tell you, or should not tell you, where their emergency evacuation spot is until they're there. Because the problem is when the parents show up first, we can't get the kids in. So typically we will, and that's part of what my job is in my school district. We evacuate the kids, move them to a new place, and then we let parents know where they are. We know, because we've all been parents too, that that's terrifying and scary. We want to know if your kid is there or not. But if parents beat us there, it's nearly impossible. And we've had schools actually have to secondary location the kids to reset because there was just too much commotion and chaos in a situation. And so know what your school's plan is for an emergency. Have a few things in their backpack. An extra granola bar. This isn't snack recess. This isn't, I got bored in math. This is, it's gonna be a while before I can get home. Yes,
Do you like put a ham radio or a GMRS radio with your kids?
all of my kids, they break everything I give them, and they're in their 20s and they still do it. But these are in their kits at school. And the one who carries their kit in their car because they do a lot of traveling around, and so she carries
So
them.
you have a kit for your kids at school, like in the locker?
Oh, well, it's mine are all in
Oh.
college. Yeah, no, mine are all way.
Yeah, I'm thinking about like junior high.
Yeah, so when my kids were little, I did this and I used the plastic pencil boxes in the bottom of their bags, and these were the emergency only snacks. And we had they're like juice pouches, Capri Suns, but they're water. So we had like the water in there, and that could be Snapchat. I had a kid who had severe allergies. He had an EpiPen in there as well, some things like that. So just those little hard case plastic pencil boxes are a great thing for the school portion. But more importantly is making sure they learned your phone number. Do they know your names? You laugh. 2 Sundays ago, I'm teaching our self-reliance course on emotional resilience in our state, and a little kid wanders in, 2 years old, didn't know mom and dad's name. He'd been walking around outside in the freezing cold in shorts and a t-shirt. He followed dad had come for church meetings, dad didn't know he'd left the house, right? So make sure your kids know your names, not just mom and dad, but your actual names. And when they're old enough, make sure they also have a phone number. It used to be we had a home phone, everybody knew how to call them. We still have a home phone, but it's tied to my husband's cell phone. So those are things that have changed with communication over time. But even knowing where to go if your house were to catch fire at night. My kids, I swear I gave them anxiety for life because we used to do fire drills at home. In fact, I had a neighbor that said, well, we know our daughter was playing with yours. And I'm like, how come? They said she was practicing fire drills with her Barbie dolls under the kitchen table. I'm like, oh yeah, that was probably us. Because that's just who we are. And making sure they know how to get out of the house safely and where will we meet and where's a safe place. That's all part of your communication plan. Another important step in your communication plan is having access to someone outside of the family, that everyone can have that number in your cell phone, because often when information is clogged up here in an area like Harriman with the fires, if someone there could get a line out and call someone in Oregon, Idaho, Washington, wherever else, and then that person can call back in to the community, that is sometimes a way to do it. Also, if you have a ham radio license, there are processes you can go through to get your cell phone number registered as a priority cell number. And it will get cell lines before other people will get cell lines. So I don't know the process for that, but I know it is out there, and it's something that my husband's registered our numbers for. I just don't know how he did it exactly, but you can look into that through the ham radio emergency services. Okay. Other questions or thoughts on communication?
Wonder quick, how hard is, I got all the stuff for the hand thing and it kind of discouraged me, because it looks hard.
So
How hard is it really?
well, I passed it.
So
That's the
did
key.
we.
You're very smart, I can tell.
So. go
I
down-
am all about feelings and emotions, and I am nothing about radio waves and frequencies. But
The test isn't about that.
the test, so there's a great program that we used for me called
Ham study.
mine was Ham Test.
Oh,
.org.
hamstudy.org is super good.
And it will take you through those questions. There will be little clips and videos that teach you the concepts. You could probably study for a week and go take the test. And you can take the test online now. When I did it, you had to drive to like wherever someone was.
Oh, you
doing
can
it.
take it online
You
now?
can take the test. It's proctored and it's live, like there's a person there. It's $15 to take the test. My daughter just did it.
So, yeah, ham test or ham study. Ham study, you can actually get an app, you have to pay for it, but you could just go through the different sections and do practice tests until you're ready.
And it shows you when you're wrong and why you're wrong, and you can just even train yourself to memorize the test, basically.
It is just memorizing it, because you have the question and the answer.
Yep.
Verbatim.
And if they offer you to take the next level of test, because there's multiple levels and what you can do changes as you go, take it. Because usually it's free if you, while you're taking the first one, as long as you're here, you want to take the next one, just take it. You never know, you might pass.
Probably.
I didn't. My husband did, my daughter did, I didn't. So, but just as far as communication and emergency, those are some great things. They may not be for everybody though. So making sure that you're having open dialogue with the kids and they know what the plan is. If mom's ever not here, where are you gonna go? Those types of things, especially with littles. Okay. Water storage, when you're talking, about evacuation kits and family plans, your water storage in your home, we kind of went over in the last class. But if you're looking at those, we talked about 72-hour kits by the state are now called 96-hour kits because they don't think they're getting to you in 72 hours if it's a widespread disaster. So at least they're being honest about it. But if they're being honest at 96 hours, how many do you think it'll really? Right?
Self-Reliance would say that we should be prepared to.
Right, and then the 96 hours is more like being out of your house, right? I could stay in my house. I could probably stay in my house for years because I don't like people enough in general to have to leave. So that works for me, right? But if I have to leave, then I have to have some supplies along the way. Water is a tough one because it's heavy to carry. And so in a 72-hour kit, it's also a great option to have filtration options so that if water comes along in another source, you have other options and you can save that water. We love, it's a total hoax, but the alkaline water, okay, it comes in really tall bottles. That's why we like it. It fits nicely on both sides of the backpack with the little cup things on the side, 2 of those bottles. And one of those bottles will rehydrate multiple of the bags of the foil mylar meals for emergencies as well. It's called alkaline water. You can get it at Costco, and they have a Costco brand and a name brand, but they're just really tall, sturdy plastic bottles.
They're like the smart water,
Yeah, they're like the smart
they're
water.
really quality bottles.
You can get those as well if they're
Yeah.
cheaper. And the alkaline water doesn't work because it gets in your stomach and your stomach's all acid. And so it changes the alkaline water. But as someone who can't drink water because it gives me bad heartburn, the alkaline water works to get it down. Once it's in my stomach, I don't care what it does, but getting that water down. So it's not a total hoax, but don't spend more money than you need to on your water is what I'm saying. We love those bottles though. So keeping those bottles and using them for that is a great way. But don't forget something like Life Straw. They have Camelbacks that are a filtration Camelback. So the water filters through and you can just spray it out the little nozzle at the end and it's filtered by the time it comes through.
Kind of the new craze in filtration is I looked at my email, I just got one, it showed a trade show. All they do is they press down, have you seen those?
Yes, and it's squeezing,
They're
almost like
awesome.
squeezing a lemon, but it's
It's just like
pure
this,
fresh water.
yeah. And
Yeah.
it's just like having a water bottle with you that you can always use
And you can
contaminated source.
get smaller as you go, so it's not taking up all the same space. That was, okay, so 96.
Me too.
72 to 96. This is part of that tempo preparedness guide, just a reminder of some of the things that you need. Remembering medications, particularly with kiddos and the elderly, having some cash on hand. People don't really do that much anymore, but making sure you have that and access to important documents as well. A big part, once you know what disasters you're preparing for, all of this kind of falls into place. And while your situation's slightly different here, we do share a lot of the same things. We found some fantastic lights at Costco. They're 4 packs of Duracell. They're a heavy duty, small flashlight that can go from high beam, very intense, to a wider. So high beam can get attention for you. There'll be flashing lights. One will turn red. They run off of little tiny batteries that you can screw in, but they also have okay. Tech isn't my thing. They also have little rechargeable batteries that you can have charged up, and you can slide those in. And the rechargeable batteries can hook up to little solar packs, like little tiny ones, and recharge as well, so that you don't have to worry about storing tons of heavy batteries because those little flashlights. They also have lanterns that are fantastic at Costco that are made by Duracell. Good price on them. So those are important as well. Tents are an important part of your family plan. If you have to leave your home, tarps are fantastic. If you don't have a tent, a tarp takes up a lot less space, but you will want tents for privacy reasons, as well as heat and water and safety, other safety issues. And let's see, did I get all of those mostly? Got communications. Knowing what you eat is an important part of your family plan and helping your kids understand where they can find food and get things. I remember my neighbor said she was so mad when she came home because she was planning this big chef salad for dinner and came home and her teenager had eaten an entire head of lettuce for an after school snack. And I'm like, I'd be thrilled. I ate an entire box of Twinkies. So like take it as a win and go buy more lettuce. But sometimes just having the kids in on the plan, even if it's short-term plans, this is just what we're doing for the week. Weekly planning with your family can really help reduce anxiety if your kids are feeling anxious about the planning process. He also once ate a whole row of sausages out of a package. And that one he did get in trouble for because he didn't cook them. He assumed they were cooked. And they weren't. He ate a lot of things he shouldn't.
He's still alive.
Big strong Marine that diffuses bombs for a living. Including your kids, we did this in the last group. I'll hand these out to those of you that weren't here for that. This is just like a 3-month supply, like how to figure out what you need in 3 months. And it's a really fun one to include your family members in, because there's like a brain storing session where you like list every chicken dish you can think of. And you have your kids start naming and your spouse start naming. Oh, I love it when you made the honey mustard chicken. You could write that one down and you can put stars by the things they love the most. There's a calendar in there. Start filling those things in. Monday's chicken night. At our house, it's almost every night, but picking those things and having the kids pick which things are for dinner, you'll be surprised at how much more quickly they're on board with eating what's on their plate when they've been a part of that process. We're big fans of gardening. We're big fans of preserving, canning, freeze drying, all of those things. This week I ate dried green beans for the first time. They're fabulous. Like my kids would, those veggie straws you get at Costco? They were like that, but not oily and gross.
And have things so that you can.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like there was a point where, during COVID, getting lids was impossible.
And I had lucked out because just before COVID, I had read the book 1 second after, which I can't entirely recommend.
Yes, you can.
Listen, it's
such
really
a
cool, but
good
it's
book.
super violent and there's bad words. Okay, so I'm just
Great book.
just.
It's a great book,
I
though.
love
Right,
it.
but I'm gonna give a disclaimer,
Sure,
right?
that's
But that book made me go, canning supplies, why am I not storing canning supplies? So I bought a ton of them, they all come with one lid, right? But there's Amish country stores that you can look online in Ohio, and they sell sleeves of 200 lids.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so fabulous lids. I even bought some of the reusable ones. They haven't worked out well.
Yeah.
Maybe we're too.
But I know some older individuals that just reuse the same lids.
Yes, I'm
And-
not a fan of that though.
Uh,
If it works, it works.
Yeah, if it works, you're lucky. If it works, you're lucky, right? But But
Don't wanna have.
those lids aren't that expensive for a big old sleeve of 200 of them. You can get the small mouth or the large mouth. The vacuum sealing, those lids you can reuse more easily than the wet pack. The wet pack where it's boiling away, those are harder lids to get to reseal. Also freezer space and making sure you have access to some maybe solar panels. They're not that expensive to get small ones to run some things off of if you can afford a generator.
Solar generator.
Good on you. Solar generators are great. Generators are fantastic. We've never had the money to pay to have one hooked up. The price of the generator is nothing compared to the cost of having an electrician come out. So if you've got a brother that's an electrician, awesome. Or you are, or someone you know, fantastic. But otherwise, it's way more expensive than the actual generator.
You do have to go through a long process, but so I actually have.
Really?
So,
Yeah.
So I would like the solar panels and the solar battery was just itself
Oh, that's.
in November, but it was a process. I like you have to get city approval and the electric company, well, there's lots of hoops to jump through, so.
And again, through the ham radio, we were able to get a small portable hospital-sized generator on a trailer. Because we're licensed to help in an emergency and they want to make sure that we have power.
Okay.
But I will tell you, is no one within a 5-mile radius that won't get that generator turned on.
Right.
Because it's military,
It's
not,
really-
it's not the cute little wire to your house.
I have like a $400 generator and that's loud too.
Yeah. Yeah, they can be. I know my husband has also gone online and created his own out of like batteries from computers at work. The big type, and it just created small little, we can charge phones and things like that on them, that it keeps basic things going.
There are
there's a
tons
lot
of
of ways to-
solar generators out there.
Yep, lots of ways
Just
to find
find
them.
something.
Find something you can afford. Do not throw all of your money at preparedness. Don't gamble the fact that you may need that for something else along the way. Slow and steady.
Be prudent.
Just keep going. Be prayerful about what is the priority and working through that as part of your creating a family plan is really important. But if you can get your family involved in the food and water and the communications portions of your family plan, they will remember it. And that way they're not carrying around a whole notebook. What's this? Oh, it's my mom's book for what I do in a disaster, right? They need to be a part of that planning process to truly, truly internalize it.
So don't put or abort my plans to put the zombie turret on the top of our roof.
The zombie turret.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
I've never seen that prepper show. It didn't go very long, but this gal literally, she built this thing on top of her house. And it had a 12-foot gap where the stair retracted up into it. So when she got up in there, and it was literally, she had a 50 cal gun up there on a rail. It would do 360.
Oh,
I
A
can't
prepper,
recommend
a
that.
prepper.
Yes. Yes, remember when I said it, so in the last class, I had everybody rate their preparedness. I said, we do this in school with kids, like, how well do you understand the math? 1 is I don't understand. 5 is I could teach someone in class, right? I said 1 is you're just starting the preparedness journey. 5 is there's a bunker buried in my backyard, right? So I had everybody tell me where they were in that path and that process. That's a 5. Zombie
Yeah.
turret,
Zombie
definitely.
turret.
Definitely a 5. But keeping your family safe and helping kids understand who they talk to about these things and who they don't is an important thing as well. Sharpie method is just one way to figure out what you're eating. Checking dates, just a reminder, check the dates on the food you purchase, that especially at bulk purchases at Costco even. Costco things turn over pretty quick. Sam's Club a little less. But when like Macy's or someone has a case lot sale, they'll bring out the soonest expiring food first. And so often, you know how they like line it up down the middle? That stuff's going first. Usually what's on the shelf is the newer stuff. Or you can go through it a little bit and find something maybe very bad. But they're, for obvious business reasons, they're trying to get rid of what's gonna go first. So check your dates. I know this isn't new to you guys, but just for these guys, that Sharpie method I showed, anytime for a while I was trying to figure out what we did eat, I had a Sharpie in my kitchen, still do to this day, and I would write the date when I opened a jar of salsa or mayonnaise or peanut butter or whatever it was. And then when it was empty and I threw it away, I wrote it down. My daughter now has me put it in my phone app, my notes app on my phone. But then when I go to the store and be like, wow, now these pickles on sale, these are the ones my kids like. Oh gosh, let's see, we ate 1 jar in a month. So at this price, if I can buy a whole year's worth, because the date gives me a whole year, right? Man, I could get 2 years worth at a really good price. I don't think we'll see that price again. It helps me not waste as much food.
So my parents, my mom had me make a list of all of the normal things in her food storage. And whenever she takes it out, she puts a tally mark next to it.
That's kind of what this is. in
And-
mine.
And then she just shops based on that.
Oh, no, yeah.
So however it works for you.
For you, individual has to work for your
Can I
family.
make one suggestion? When you get older and your kids are all out, what we do now, our wife will go through and she'll pull the stuff that's getting close to expired, and we have a basket at the front door that our kids know. And so as they come and visit and stuff, they, that's all, whatever you guys can take, okay?
See, that's so much more civilized than my children. They go to the drawer where all the grocery bags are, and they just head straight to
shop.
this room and go shopping.
Oh, no, we have that problem too.
They full shop the room.
Yeah,
They
Yeah,
full shop the room.
make them tally.
Yeah, make them
Right.
tell you that, right?
well, no,
I love it.
they use it as a grocery store.
I forgot last time, that will you share with them what you guys are doing with water storage right now that works really good?
So we did like the big blue barrels for like a long time, and then we had like the smaller ones, because we were kind of like, this is like, how do we lift it, how do we even get the water out of it, and but my husband happens to have because of our business, we have like one of those water coolers that's part of the business, and so he's like, you know what? Because we were concerned about rotation, right, because it gets kind of slimy, or we were dumping things out. So, he was like, you know what if we just started storing these bottles that you use inside the water cooler, because then not only are we rotating through it, because every time he goes to refill it, he just takes an old one and puts it in, but then also we will dispense it, like if there actually is an emergency, and so. Anyways, that's kind of how we sort of just shifted over to using those bottles and. rotate through 'em.
So those big tall blue ones.
Kind of like, I don't know that it was super expensive, but it's one of those like,
Turn and
it's like, yeah.
Yes, the
straight-
Culligan or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Okay.
And you don't even have to buy a new bottle, because you can go to Winco and refill it for like really, really
Oh, you
cheap.
guys have a Winco down here?
Yeah, so
Great for preparedness.
So we, that's kind of what happens. He used to, like, we bought enough bottles for what we thought we needed for our big family, right? And then he literally just kind of rotates. And I know that my water storage is always being, like, yeah, and being used, and it's
And
kind of.
at Winco, you know, they have the bulk section at Winco, you can actually buy it, not in those bulk, but like being gluten-free, we buy boxes of the macaroni noodles that are gluten-free that they then dump in the barrels that people buy in bags, right? But you can buy the boxes or the full bags of any of the products at Winco, but you just let them know in advance. Like today, I'm gonna go pick up 8 boxes, 20 pounds a piece of macaroni noodles and boxes. My son gets home from a mission, loves mac and cheese.
Gotta get ready.
I gotta get ready. I gotta go buy 100 pounds.
Let me tell you guys about something about water storage. The food services companies have these big tanks that are anywhere from 50 gallons to 350 gallons. But like they have a 130-gallon one, you can buy them for next to nothing. And they'll actually have on their website when they sell these things. And they have an imprint, a little smaller than a 55-gallon blue. But then you put them on a stand you can get on Amazon. And they're 130 gallons. And the neat thing is they have a quick discharge on it. It's that big around. And this is more for bathing. You know, it's actually potable water because you put the oxygen in it, right? 2 of those things does the whole 130 gallons. And it lasts 5 years. But it is so much better than those barrels. Because you can get at the water without having to pump it. All you do is you go like this and it'll fill a 5-gallon bucket up in literally about 2.5 seconds, maybe 3 or 4 seconds. It'll take a 5-gallon bucket when you open that up and
It'll just.
for toilet flushing, you know, that kind of stuff.
On YouTube, there's also ways that you can build a storage rack to store your 55-gallon barrels on their side and have it feed down from the top to the next, to the next, to the
Yeah,
next.
that'd be cool.
So they're all full of water, but then when you refill, you just start at the top. And so it lets them rotate and be clean that way as well. There's like plans on YouTube for how to do all of that.
You can also buy, like I have we have a 260-gallon one that has a spigot at the bottom and a spigot like at a 5-gallon bucket level.
About that height, yeah.
And
Those work great too.
They're on.
They're harder to rotate or to, clean out.
Yes.
Yeah, they take a little more effort.
But I appreciate your suggestion to have the water in various sizes, containers. If that makes a big difference, like if anything, I'm like, we're probably good on maybe the 96 hours part, but not 2 weeks for sure. And maybe that's where we start looking at.
And this
bigger
is,
housing.
I'll go back to that other one. Sorry, I got that right when you were taking a picture. The Ready Store has information on water storage. I encourage 2 gallons per person per day. The reason is because that includes washing and cooking and toilet needs as well as drinking. And right here, you can go in and you can say, I want to know how much I need for drinking, washing, cooking for 2 people for 3 months. It's 180 gallons. So it'll do the calculations for you. So I just wanted to show you that. That's at the Ready Store. I don't know anything about the Ready Store, but I checked the math on other sites as well, and it computes. So it may be worth doing if you're trying to figure out. But again, you want that water in different sizes. You don't want 180 gallons in 55-gallon barrels. First of all, the math doesn't work. But second,
Yeah,
you
so,
want different sizes.
yeah, like boil water orders, it's like, for Lindon had one. And we didn't have a way to wash our hands. Like, so we got a whole bunch of the 5-gallon, little containers with spigots on them, and then you could have one in each.
And when it comes to washing, you can use even things like old laundry detergent or soaps and stuff, not for drinking, absolutely not for drinking. Also, you can buy barrels from places like Coca-Cola and other companies that are used that had syrups and things in them. Be very careful if you're doing that. You have to get that so clean. If there's anything left in that barrel at all, it could be a problem. Also, some of those places have barrels of chemicals, not barrels of syrups. And so
Gotta make
you
sure.
just, if you're gonna go, hey, this is cheap and I need something for water, be very careful when, especially when it comes to water, where you're finding your product.
They're usually labeled. They're labeled.
Yeah, they should be
They have a-
labeled.
Like
Not
a-
everybody selling them
Yeah.
on KSL
Right.
has the integrity to keep the labels on them. So just be careful where you're buying your products. For some reason, this keeps coming to mind, so I'm going to share it with you. But we also have bobs, water bobs. Do you guys know what a water bob is? So it's the shape of a tub,
Oh, yes.
and during an emergency, you throw that water bob in your tub and you fill it up with water while it's still clean. Because there's a certain amount of water still already in the lines and pipes coming in that's going to be clean before there's an issue. And so it wouldn't work with like a boil order, because that's already in your system before they figure out it's there. But it should an earthquake happen, man, we've got those water bobs in every bathroom with a tub. And it just makes your tub a giant water storage container, and you can pump the water directly out of there. But they're small, they can fit under a bathroom cupboard, and they're on Amazon for cheap. Yeah, so they're a great thing to get. What else was I gonna show you? Helping kids that are a little bit older understand in a disaster, what sorts of things they can and can't help with. We don't want you turning off your gas after an earthquake just because there's been an earthquake. If you hear or smell gas, yes, turn it off. But if you turn it off, you're not supposed to turn it back on without it being inspected. Do you know how long you're going to wait for an inspection? A long time, a really long time. So do not turn off your gas unless you suspect there's a gas leak. I told this group last time, a home in my community blew up, killing a high school student a few months ago. And get gas meters, natural gas, not just carbon monoxide, get natural gas and read about them, because the different gases hit at different levels and max out at different levels. Natural gas hits at a different level than carbon monoxide. So even though they're all in the same little filter telling you if something's wrong, make sure that you've got them placed properly. If it needs to be high, put it up high. So read about the one you purchase. Amazon has them and they're fairly inexpensive dual gas monitors. Also in this case, just so you know, the reason you would want to monitor, because you think, well, I can smell when I turn the gas on in the stove and don't get it off all the way, or I can smell these different things. There was no smell of gas in the home that blew up because the gas was filtering through so much dirt and rock on its way to the house and through the basement that additive they put in to make it smell, because it doesn't smell naturally, was gone. It was filtered out, so there would have been no warning. So just be aware that that one hits home. That one really does hit home. as I told them, part of my job at work is to go console and work with grief in schools when we do lose a student for whatever reason. And that will, from now on, always have them. We also had a family of 7 in our neighborhood, all end up in the hospital in, what's the air compression thingy?
Oh,
The oxygen.
hyperbaric.
Hyperbaric chamber, because they had a gas leak in the night and they only found it because dad woke up to go to the bathroom in the night, tripped over an unconscious cat. Then he went down, mom heard that, woke up, called 911 and said, I don't know what's going on. And they're like, this is what's going on. And she was unconscious before they got there as well. So these things hit home for me, so that's why I'm sharing them. They're not a bigger risk than they were 5 minutes ago before I told you, but they are things that are close to my heart, so I'm sharing. Making sure though that your children know, if they're old enough, how to turn the gas off if there's an emergency. Do your kids know how to turn the water off if water's shooting out of something in your house? It's happened at my house frequently. Now, you've got to know the age of your kids and their skill set. Do they know how to turn it off at the road? Do they know how to turn it off in the house? Do they know how to turn it off under the toilet before it overflows? That's where I'd start. That's most likely with my kids when they were little, right? Do they know how to turn it off under a sink? And so making sure that they understand how those things work. Those are all things that kids can do and participate in and help in. Please have a fire extinguisher. We had a car explode in our backyard, catch on fire. It was charging. We were going to sell it. And we knew it hadn't been driven in a while, so we hooked up one of those portable chargers, a trickle charger. So it was trickle charging, went to church on Sunday. It was fast Sunday and it was giving me a migraine. Decided to go home, went home with one of my sons. Our dog was going nuts, who never goes nuts. She ran in the house. We are no dogs in the house family. Dogs belong outside with the goats. And she came running in and she got us. We went out and flames, like huge flames, right next to my neighbor's outdoor garage, which was full of an entire wall of gasoline for his boat. So so I go running out with the fire extinguisher. I can put things out that it won't put out a car fire. It's a whole different game. So unless you do a lot with cars and have one specific for a car or truck, it's probably not going to work. But then on my way running back through the house to the front to let the firemen know where we were, it hit the corner of the door and exploded and filled my entire garage with the powder from the fire extinguisher. And it was a mixture of curse words and laughing because I'm like covered in it. My guard, it's covered in it. My neighbor's garage is gonna blow up and the firemen are taking them to it'll burn here. It was ugly. We didn't sell the car.
Don't fire extinguishers like expire too?
They
Like,
do
that's
expire.
correct? Okay.
They do expire. And I encourage you, when you get close to an expiration date on one, let your kids practice using it. It'll still work, but it is good to renew them when they're expired. Really expensive ones can be recharged, but the typical Costco ones, just buy one. But let the kids practice. Start a little fire in the backyard, a bond controlled, please. Have them practice sweeping the bottom, start it again, let the next kid try it. It's great for your kids to know how to put those things out. And those blankets you can get for your kitchen that you throw over kitchen fires, have you seen those online?
Yes, we have those.
Fantastic, they
Yeah.
work. I'll tell you that story. You know what, when you have enough kids, you got a story for everything. Watching out for chemicals. Trying to see what, landslides, I don't know, I feel like you guys should be worried about that. But, well, not worried about it, but prepared for it. But every map I look at says it's not an issue, just because of the type of landscape. You've got the hills, but they're solid, like the ones by me in Draper, those are constantly coming down. You guys all saw the video on the news where the house is falling,
Yeah.
you know.
I don't know which guys, remember like in COVID, we had that earthquake that was all the way out in Canada? And so my husband and I are like on the top story of our house and we felt it, like we woke up and there was like a little bit of sway. None of us, the kids did, but it's kind of like left this like residual, like I felt that all the way out in Magna, like what is that?
So 10 years old, stand in the bus stop, waiting for the bus, and the chain link fence down the street starts going. Really neat kid up the street. You drag a stick along the chain link fence. I said, you come to the bus in the morning. We're all stressed, and all of a sudden we are all laying on the floor. what happened? It was a 6.9 earthquake. And you could watch it coming up the street, like
a wave.
a wave of it. It was incredible. And then all the moms come running out of the house in robes with towels on their heads. It wasn't from earthquake country. It never happened. That was the first one anyone had. Anyway, it was a wild and crazy time. So I'm a big fan of the earthquake thing. But that same earthquake, when I was a little kid, we have a friend that works in my husband's company. He was in one of the big tall buildings downtown working at a bank. And he said all the hangers on the rack started slamming from one side to the other. So being up higher, you're going to feel it more. You're going to feel it more. And that was in central Idaho. And at that level of a 6.9, you are going to feel it all the way to Salt Lake. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, another thing that worries me about earthquakes, and we were talking about having these emergency kits on wheels, and maybe this is a weird connection, but we like to watch travel shows, and sometimes Rick Steves will talk about, don't bring your wheel suitcases to Europe because you have all these cobblestones. And my thought is, well, if we had an earthquake and the whole, like my house is torn up, and I have to evacuate, the streets are probably gonna be torn up. So I keep thinking I need like backpacks or like it's hard to carry to Europe.
Yeah.
I don't think
There's both options, because we have older people as well as younger people who are not going to be able to carry it.
Yeah.
They're just not. And so the wheels may be the only option they have. But lifting it over a few obstacles, but having time where you can still pull it is still worth it. A lot of those bags also have backpack straps that you can get.
Okay.
And we got a big wagon, it's called a gorilla wagon, and it has wheels like this on it.
Yeah.
It compresses down to like one of those chairs you use for soccer games, right? And then it pops up to a big one and you can throw things in there and pull it and it will go over all kinds of things. I've done it.
Cool.
But the other thing is, in a big earthquake, your house is smashed up, where are you gonna go? Your backyard. Your backyard. Your kid's easy to take, right? So bigger spaces, stake centers, some used to have property, some of them still do, where people could gather there, their yards, or they don't have yards, townhomes, condos, those type of things. But typically, you're going to the open patch of grass where you can pitch a tent and chill out for a while. Because if it's that big of an earthquake, no one else is around to go there.
That's a good insight, thank you.
So it's not as big of an issue, as you might think it could be, but there are options to ease some of that. So we're kind of out of time, but are there questions, anything I can answer along those lines for you?
Quick question.
Yes.
I've heard some people recommend to bury their saving club in. Would you?
That's a zombie apocalypse. That's like, I said the little 1 to 5, that's like a 6. That's kind of like the dirty bunker.
No,
No, but don't put them right by the front door where someone breaks into your house and like, thank you very much, there's all your, right? So there's other ways to make them a little less accessible to people, but I wouldn't go so far to bury.
Want ours to be accessible, so we have them all hung up on our garage wall.
Yeah, and I've seen them, so
Yes.
our city emergency manager, their home was broken into and all their kids were taken with all their private information and all of their supplies. So it just depends on where you feel like security and what it is as far as an issue for you, but I wouldn't.
Garages and temperature control, right? Like what the temperature does.
Yeah, so freeze-dried foods, canned foods, and water are typically not going to be affected by a garage temperature swing.
Okay.
Most garages in newer homes, which much of Utah is, not all, but my home's like 50 years old, are insulated, and so there's not as wild of a swing. So I have cases of bottled water in my garage that I have never frozen.
Okay.
So I know that it's staying warm enough. But that's something you can check by just putting water out when it's cold and checking and.
You guys already said it.
Okay, one last really quick thing, and maybe this is mostly for you, but the state of Utah organizes emergency preparedness things by area, by using stake boundaries, because there's not an inch of ground not covered by a stake, right? And the same thing is done in Louisiana by parishes, because everything has its parish in order. So it's not a church thing, it's not a gospel thing, it's a state preparedness thing. And this is called RDAP, it's the Rapid Disaster Assessment Program, and it is a simple way to organize your community around preparedness. So every home in my ward has that paper that explains these. And then we all have one of those manila folders taped inside our
We have
coat closets or kitchen doors. And we do drills twice a year where they say, before you leave for work today, pick one. We don't care what it says, pick whichever one you want and put it up in your window. And then they have our street captains, the people in charge of everyone on the street, whether they're a member, non-member, whatever, go through and write down their numbers, and they report it to the ward person who reports it to me, and I report to the state president, who reports to the area authority over it. So we do it twice a year. The Great Shakeout is one of them, and we do it in September, right before our big, kind of like today, event. We do it right then too, so people know what areas they need.
Aren't these like things that certain people like use when kind of like checking in?
Very similar to what CERT uses. Yeah, it coordinates with that well, and I've heard that CERT is going to be happening here in your community. If you are interested, CERT's a great class. It is a little stressful and anxiety inducing because you hear things you don't want to hear. But if you're up to it mentally and person it, then by all means participate in that as well. Anything else? Make a plan with your family, communicate with your family, make sure they're part of the process so they don't forget it. Okay, thank you so much. Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, there's a website called Approaching Ready.
I heard that.
A lot of good. Just.
Okay, approaching ready.
Approaching Ready.
Okay, I'm gonna go look at it. Ready.gov is a great one as well. They have tons of lists of things that you can store. You can get over the top a little bit, but, and then that pamphlet, and then the church one, the Temporal Preparedness Utah Area Guide it's actually a workbook you could work through with your family.
So how did
Thank
you do your ham radio link from Hawaii?
Oh, from
Did
Hawaii.
you do like an echo link?
Yeah, well, yeah. It was fun. That's,
But that,
I mean, we're nerdy.
yeah, but you have to have power.
Yeah.
And if there's no power, then.
Yep, you definitely have to have power to make that work. But it's also nice. So my husband's company goes to Hawaii every year for work, for every other year for work. And the last time I went with him, it worked out. I could go, I woke up at 3 o'clock in the morning, just like something is off. Something is weird. There's lights like under the bed when your feet move that turns the lights on so you can see where you're going. And I got up and no lights. And so weird. I walked to the balcony and I opened the doors. The blackest black I've ever seen in my life. Pitch black. The island was out of power. The entire island of Maui had no power. And I was supposed to fly out at 6 a.m. And so we ended up getting on our phone. He got on a relay on his phone for ham radio and was listening to people talk. And they said, if you need to go to the hospital or the airport, lights are on at both because of generators. So we made our way through the dark island that night to the airport, and I left on time. But the ham radio came in very handy. But also it's scary to be on the island. I think, having those ham radios with you in a place like that, you can have that powered for quite a while.
Did you go through wherever you travel? No, see their ham radio.
Yeah, it's not too bad.
My husband was in the ham radio, like he was, he's licensed but I don't know, if like kept it up and his equipment feels more,
Chunkier.
yes.
Yeah, this is my new one.
Development, these ones that are coming out now are.
You gotta be awesome.
Because that's portable, but he's got things hooked up in his car and like a bunch of, I don't know, it's been intimidating to me.
And then we have extended radios or antennas as well, so that you can get.
It's
Yeah.
for his car.
Yeah, so we get the longer antenna for this as well that can screw right in,
Okay.
and I can get a lot more distance.
So that's
off of it.
their
quality.
call sign.
This
That's
is
their
your GMR.
Mhm. That's the.
That was smart.
Ours is WSEM.
I'll never remember that. I got our ham radios. I'll never
Our
remember.
ham radios, we did vanity ones,
Oh,
so
okay.
mine's K7 SOK, and my initials are SOK.
So mine's like that. Our oldest son
Is
did
it
it.
versus?
Yeah, when we did not do that, but those I remember, but these GMRS I won't remember.
So
it's
those
just
are
labels.
using, those are with the GPS.
Mhm.
What's your range on those?
On the GPS.
Yeah,
So we were able to track, like the furthest kids, because I told you we did that little game where we set them all out. The furthest one, because we didn't want to take too long to do it, but he went over to South Town Mall, which is maybe 7 or 8 miles from us. We found it at South Town Mall. Thank you.
And Does it come with instructions on how to
Yeah.
actually?
And there's like a whole book.
Orienteer with that?
And that's what I put the paper, I have a paper here with it. Oh, here's a crap.
Oh, another ham radio resource would be Noji. Noji.com.
Oh, yeah. I thought you were pointing at someone.
Well, he was.
It is a guy, but it's a
So
Nokia guy.
Noji's a guy, he's in Orem,
Okay,
and
perfect,
he's extensive ham radio information,
perfect.
equipment, band plan.
Well, what we did is we took the very basic information on how to run it, made a copy of it for each of our kids. It's in their kit.
Okay.
And it has that has their radio numbers on it, but yeah. But just so that they can pull it out and use it. And we made them practice with it once.
Yeah.
Before they all moved to the East Coast, they're all gonna practice with it again.
I think information is really important, like, it's funny, for some reason at Easter time, I tend to give them some kind of like emergency preparedness thing, and I gave them all like a book of kind of like, this is how you deal with these illnesses or injuries, or like, just, I don't know, I think.
Our pediatrician puts one out that's just made on colored paper, and you go down, it's like stomach issues, and you
Yeah.
flip it open, and it's like, try these,
Yeah.
then call us, then go straight to ER, right?
There was a doctor, I want to say it's.
So if you're doing ham,
Something out there.
there's a website, Doji.com.
There was a doctor.
Noji.
Noji,
Like,
N-O-J.
if you're feeling these, this is the medication that you need.
This is a guy who lives in
It
Orem.
was kind of like whatever.
So he-
Buy.
He's got a lot of.
Legal, like, it's.
Noji.
Yeah,
Right
you're
over
right. If I were
But he
sitting my
knows
kid
like
in there
it's
now, I've got several friends who
Sorry.
their son's in there.
Yeah.
I would send them with one of these radios. Say, they didn't know. Right. You know, and a solar panel, a little, probably one of the little.
And he has
like,
a-
Charge,
Kind of
Like,
like,
it all goes to heck.
he's got-
There's that.
Get that solar thing.